Welcome back. Chapter 22. Before. Are you cold? My mother asked. It was unlike her to inquire after my well-being. Ignoring her question, I wrapped my arms around myself in an attempt to stop the shivering. No, I wasn't cold. My tremors was of excitement and anticipation. Tomorrow, I was going to Edinburgh. The last couple of years had been far from easy. I had moved through my final school terms like I was swimming underwater. My body ached constantly with the effort, never having a chance to recover with sleep, because who had time to slumber? What with monitoring my mother's activity, keeping clear of Carl and his unwelcome advances, making the house as respectable as it could be with two addicts living in it, and staying up to date with homework, coursework, and exams. It was all for the end game, the final prize. Edinburgh would lead to a career and later a home that was always clean and neat as a pin, and maybe even a husband who was strong and handsome and able to provide for his family. The opposite of Carl, in other words. Sometimes I thought of Rebecca and the prize I had stolen from her. Each time I remember what I had done, I was quick to reassure myself. She didn't need it. I had seen her, the way she was dressed, the expensive aura she exuded. She didn't need it. It was my new mantra to be replaced silently to myself, to be repeated silently to myself until the guilt passed. My case was packed, a single suitcase reflecting 18 years of living. 18 years of no friends, no family apart from my mother, no fun times or birthday parties or celebrations, no love, no tenderness. I zipped up the case and glanced at my mother. She stood in the doorway to my bedroom, her thin frame supported by the wall she leaned against. Mom, do you want to come to Edinburgh with me? I tried to swallow back the words even as they were coming out of my mouth. I wonder why I had asked her that. The answer was clear to me suddenly. If she stayed here with Carl, she would die. Nah, she said. Carl likes it round here. I wasn't asking him, I thought. And there was a sense of hurt that shimmered inside me, which was ridiculous in itself. She ceased to be able to hurt me many, many years ago. I imagined it for a moment, taking her on a long train journey up north. It was 7 hours, and she couldn't go half that time without taking a hit for her habit. And once we were there, what would happen then? Would she be out and about in the streets late at night looking to score, seeking a replacement for Carl? I envisioned bumping into her late at night, leaving the bars and clubs that I would frequent in my new life as a normal 18-year-old. My friends would look on in horror, and I would be back at school all over again, shunned for being the person I really was. No, that wasn't the person I was. It was where I came from, and there was a big difference. I was shedding my old self and everything associated with it. That included my mother. Downstairs, the front door slammed. I pulled my case off my bed and slid it underneath. Carl had said nothing about my leaving, and I didn't want to remind him that tonight would be my last night in this house. His heavy tread could be heard as he came up the stairs. I glanced at my mother, still leaning against the wall, swaying slightly, her eyes somewhere else entirely. My girls, he said as he came into view. With one hand, he was unbuckling his belt, and now he tugged it free of the loops of his jeans. I sat with my hands primly in my lap, refusing to be intimidated by him, wondering what his actions were leading to. He stopped in front of my mother, pulled a little foil packet from his pocket. Where she had been, where she had been far away moments ago, she was suddenly eager, taking the belt from him and winding it around her scarred up arm. He held the foil in his teeth as he plunged his hand into the front of her designer gown. Roughly, he massaged her breasts and pushed himself against her. She paid no heed to his wandering hand, didn't seem to notice the knee that jerked and thrust against her crotch. Eyes gleaming, moving as though they were one person, they stumbled out of my room. The fuck? I left in the middle of the night, even though my train wasn't due until 7 a.m. I was frightened that when it came to morning and I tried to walk out of that door and into my future, I would be stopped. Carl might be an addict, but he was strong and he would use that strength against me. At 1 a.m., I held my little case close to me and slid out the door, pulling it gently behind me. I looked up at the house I lived in all my life. Would this be the last time I was here? I thought back to the little girl I once was, the girl who worked out at a young age, that cutting herself was a surefire path to love and cuddles. That same girl who slept under a pink flowery duvet, oblivious to the man who pulled up her nightgown and photographed her body while she slept. I thought of the mother of that girl who had never protected her from things she had seen too young, too early. In the pitch black of nighttime, I promised myself that I would never return here. At the station, I sat in the waiting room, surprised at the number of passengers who came and went in the middle of the night. I didn't know much. I realized there in that cold, dank room, I knew very little of the world. The things I knew were unacceptable. The dosage of heroin, and how pure it needed to be. The filler ingredients to look out for that would likely kill you. How to get blood and shit and vomit out of a carpet. How to dodge a man who seemed docile but could easily be violent and savage and sexually predatory. My eyes were dry, but I was sad. I picked myself up like I always do. I didn't know nothing. I knew enough to get me into one of the top universities in the United Kingdom. I knew how to work my backside off while keeping a household running and a mother alive. The 7:04 to Edinburgh rolled into the station. I raised my chin and tried to smile as I stepped onto the train that would take me to a new life. I had a room in Halls, sharing with 2 other girls. I forced myself to smile as they came in together, arms entwined, and threw me a friendly greeting. My jaw hurt from the unnatural action. My muscles were rigid with tension, waiting for the attack. But none came. This wasn't school. These girls were older, kinder, here to get trashed for the next few years and have as much fun as they could. I never went out with them, politely declining their offers to come and get wasted. Instead, I took care of them when they returned in the early hours, vomiting after too much rum and coke. In return for the care that I'd become accustomed to giving, they shared their food with me and their clothes and shoes and makeup. It was a stunning way to live. Being appreciated was a whole new world to me. I got a job in the Unai bar, and having my own money was another breathtaking experience. I didn't have to pay for heat or gas or electricity or water. I could buy food, and I didn't have to go to the supermarket near closing time to get a reduced stale bread or vegetables that were already on the turn. I can go to cafes and restaurants and eat freshly cooked hamburgers or melted cheese toast. My life and my body filled out to proportions I had never dared to dream of. I had spent so long living in a controlled environment that with no responsibility, I went crazy. I wasn't accustomed to living this way, and it scared me as much as it thrilled me. I needed to claw back some control, starting with the way I looked. I didn't have enough willpower to deny myself food, but I found how to purge it from my system. Do that sound like that's Anna? Soon enough, despite hating myself a little, I found a way to control one small area of my life. For the first term, I kept mostly to myself. I observed this strange new world and the people who inhabited it. The goth with their dark clothes, studs and piercings, the artsy girls in their flowy bohemian dresses, the sexy pouty students, the tomboys, and the rockers. Back home, if you didn't have the right clothes or the newest brand of trainers, you were a loser. It didn't work that way in uni. Here, you could be anyone you wanted to be. I looked at my own clothes, the jeans, the unlabeled jersey and jumpers, and thought about who I wanted to be. It wasn't a difficult decision. I wanted to be something that back home could never, ever happen. I wanted to be sophisticated, classy, and chic, a million miles away from the girl I actually was. I scored charity shops for cast-off clothes from the rich women of Edinburgh. I borrowed from the roommates who, with their double-barreled surnames, never had to pretend. Time and time again, I thought of Rebecca. The way she had escaped and rebranded herself into a poised, beautiful young woman. The way I had fought her, even without her knowledge, to take the place here that was rightfully mine. I remember the way she walked, the way she wore her clothes, the glances she gave, the slightly snooty air. I put my mind to it, and I became Rebecca. I saw that the men here, well, they were boys really, were nothing like those I had known in my life to date. I moved past my fear, and I tried them all. The nerds, the bookish types, psychological students. On the plus side, they were attentive, kind, and generous, but they were also inquisitive, nosy even. Where did I come from? What did my parents do? Could they meet my family? I shuddered and gave them the cold shoulder. Why were my family so important? Why couldn't they just enjoy me? Would I ever be able to leave my past behind? But then came the athletes, the one who hung out in the bar I worked in, and who liked to talk about themselves rather than me. And there was one in particular. He never asked about my past or my future. He told me all about his, the powerful father, the dutiful mother, and the fact that he was adored above everything and anything. He talked about the future, had it all mapped out. He was perfect. And then one afternoon, the phone in my hall rang. There was one communal landline for the whole floor. I never answered it. I never got calls. It's for you. Lori, my roommate, put her head around the door. It's your dad. It's Carl, okay. I didn't correct her assumptions that I had a father. As I approached the phone, I felt like I was walking to my death. For a moment, I thought about hanging up without speaking, but he would call again. Hello? I can hear him breathing, shallow whispers down the phone. It's your mom. You need to come home. I clucked the receiver tightly and closed my eyes. Did you hear me? You need to come home. I breathed in and out slowly in an effort to slow the buildup of a panic in my chest. Okay, I said. I hung up the phone and returned to my room to pack. That's the end of chapter 22. Whoa. Is Carl lying just to get her back? And it does sound like it might be Anna's story, because she mentioned the purging of the food. And we all know that Anna have an eating disorder because she don't like to eat. So I'm back to it being Anna's story, but I'm going to continue. You ready? Chapter 23, Paula. Paula had no idea where she was headed when she found herself swept off the Ruby Spirit. All she knew was that she needed to get away from her husband and his lies. She knew him inside out, knew that he wouldn't come after her, that he would have enough confidence that she would be the one to give in, to return to him just as she always had in the past. Things were changing though, and she wasn't sure if it was him or them or just her. She latched onto the outskirts of the small group of people from the ship. They smiled at her as they organized themselves, and she saw they were heading out for a walk. Fine, she thought, I'll walk with them. As they moved off and as she followed, she wondered what Anna was doing. She had looked ready for a professional hike with her backpack and boots. Paula darted a glance at the people with her and relaxed slightly once she confirmed none of them were Anna. But what if Anna went with Tommy? She rolled her shoulders and forced her feet to keep walking. Let him do whatever he wanted with the skinny bitch. Clearly, it didn't matter whether Paula stuck close to Tommy or not. Those two had a kind of feral magnetism to each other. I deserve better, she whispered to herself, but her tone was doubtful and disbelieving. She glanced up, hoping nobody had heard her talking to herself, and blinked in surprise as she saw that the group of hikers had moved a good couple of 100 yards in front of her, abandoned yet again. She felt her face twisted in bitterness as she slowed to a stop. In front of her was a main road with 3 lanes. Beyond it, she saw trees, greenery, and hills that undulated up and down. The sky was slightly cloudy, but clear enough, no sign of that promised storm. When the traffic came to a halt, Paula crossed over and stood beside the trees that lined the road. Then, taking a deep breath and with a single lingering glance behind her, she batted aside the branches and stepped into the forest. She didn't notice anyone watching her. She didn't see anyone following her. Anna. It seemed like hours later when Anna pulled a bottle of water from her backpack and drank greedily. Her breath came in short, uneven bursts, and what felt like a lead weight had settled in her chest. Never had she imagined that Paula would be able to walk this far, and at the speed she was going, she could easily have stuck with the professional hikers. The woman's stamina was disconcerting. Her own lack of it was worrying. She paused at a rusted signpost, and ran her fingers over the letters. El Lidalton. She removed her gloves with her teeth and entered the place name into her phone. A lakeside town she saw, part of these towns? Nature Reserve. It was 7 miles away from the harbor. Sunset was almost upon them, and the sky was a strange yellow color with heavy hints of gray that held the promise of snow. The storm was brewing, and the captain of the Ruby Spirit had issued stern instructions to everyone that the ship must sail no later than 5 p.m., or they would be stuck in the harbor overnight. She dropped her backpack by the roadside and sat down heavily on it. Paula could be left out here and the ship might sail without her. And for Anna, that would mean a return journey with Tommy. She shook her head. Tommy could be mean and nasty and was very good at belittling his wife, but surely he wouldn't let the Ruby Spirit commence and return journey without her. No, Anna would push on. She would continue tracking Paula, and when she returned to the ship alone, she would go back to England. If by some slim chance the ship had sailed, she would make her own way back and look Tommy up when she got there. She locked her phone and pushed it in her backpack to nestle alongside the stolen wax jacket. The pink beret caught her eye and she pulled it out. She needed to begin discarding the items that could be used as evidence against her, and not all in the same place. Pulling out Mark's iPhone, she used it to dig a shallow hole and drop the beret in it. She kicked snow over it until it vanished. Now that don't make sense. When she was done, she hoisted the backpack onto her shoulders and began to walk. Paula. I'm sorry. I was thinking about that. At first, Paula thought it was a mirage, a shimmering, glittering pool of ice. She scrubbed at her head at the pain that jangled at her temples. The throbbing intensified when she breathed in and she closed her eyes. Mirages only happen in the desert or in really hot places, didn't they? She opened her eyes. It was still there, and because she had no other option, she decided to walk towards it. It was further away than she thought, and the condensation of her own breath and the snow that came in sideways obscured her vision. But it remained there and didn't falter, and finally she came to a stop. So, not a mirage, but a real lake, as wide and long as any she had ever seen. The bank was crusted with snow, studded with gravel and sand. Bending down, she took her gloves off, shoved it in her pocket, and scooped up a handful of water. It burned her palm, and in some far-off part of her mind, she wondered if this was one of the thermal lakes Tommy had mentioned. But no, as the water trickled out between her fingers, she realized that it only felt warm because her skin was cold. She scooped up another handful and raised it to her mouth, wondering if it was safe to drink, swearing a little at the fact being just one more thing she didn't know. Tommy would have known. She drank it anyway, then pulled out the almost empty drinking bottle from her shoulder bag and filled it up. The world spun a little. She swayed, let the feeling take her, and landed hard on her backside. A half-hearted push in the snow with her hands behind her sent her staggering to her feet. Ahead, a solitary bird with a patch of red on his breast shrieked, shattering the silence, then took flight. Almost immediately, the clouds opened up above her and the sky shimmy becoming lighter and darker all at once. She held her breath, feeling the shift and the change, and kept her eyes focused on the sky. With a shudder, it burst into life, and she released her breath in a long, drawn-out sigh. A nighttime rainbow, the northern lights. Diabolical. The reason for being here, those magical elements that had so far eluded her. She drank them in and wondered what they meant. A new beginning, perhaps, or the end of something, which made sense because to have a new start, something had to come to an end. The sound of footsteps had the same effect as shattered glass. Reluctantly, she dropped her gaze from the sky and took a single step forward. The presence behind her mimicked her movement. The rainbow flared, flickered, and faded. "Hi," said a voice. She ignored it at first. A part of her hoped it was a hallucination caused by dehydration and hypothermia. Her thoughts were very matter of fact, as though this was expected, what she deserved. More footsteps now, crunching on gravel and snow. Slowly, her body stiff now that she had stopped moving and turned around. Anna. A flutter of fear, but so much less than she felt on the boat when she looked into her eyes. Just muscle memory, because the woman might have killed the man she was supposed to be looking after. But then again, perhaps it had been an accident. Bruises on his face, airway blocked. Paula nodded dully to herself. No accident. "I'm lost." Her voice had a strange echo. "Are you lost too?" "I'm not lost." Anna smiled and moved closer. Paula tried to back away as Anna approached, but there was something that made her freeze. Suddenly, she was back on the deck of the cruise ship and someone was coming at her, and she couldn't move quickly enough, and that person was going to crash into her. Instinctively, she put her head down, flinching away from the oncoming figure. But Anna moved on past and pointed out to the lake. "The harbor is just there. Do you think the ice will hold us?" Paula looked at her incredulously. "The harbor isn't there," she said. "That's a lake." "No, beyond it. Look," said Anna. "I should know. I just came from there." Paula moved a few steps to the side. The wind flung the snow at her, and it stung now as it bounced off her face. The snow on the ground was whipped up into a circle that rose and fell. She watched it, fascinated, before looking across at Anna. Anna shrugged. "I'm going back anyway. The ship is due to sail soon, and I don't want to miss it." With that, she began to walk, her boots splashing through the shallows before crunching as she moved through the snow and onto the ice-covered lake. "Come back," Paula called. "It's too dangerous." I know damn well she ain't about to go save Anna. But Anna paid no heed, and there was no sound from her footsteps now as they slid across the ice. "Shit," Paula swore. She squinted hard in the direction that Anna was walking. Were there lights there, twinkling across the icy lake? She looked back the way she had come, remembering how long it had taken, battling through the pines, grabbed and scraped by their snow-covered branches. She was freezing now, desperate to get back to the Ruby Spirit. If she could take a shortcut, she wouldn't hesitate. But she was hesitating. Did she really want to be trapped on an ice-covered lake with Anna? Hell no. No, but neither did she want to risk getting lost in the woods behind her and having the ship set sail without her on board. She looked at the lake again, making her mind up. She took 2 steps forwards and the gravel crunching under her feet. With a gulp, she walked out onto the ice after Anna. As she moved forward, she glanced up at the gloomy sky. The sun had been out earlier, making the temperature just about bearable. Surely the ice wasn't thick enough to walk on. Wouldn't the sun rays have weakened it? Beneath her, it shifted ever so slightly. And that means turn back around, girl. She gasped and looked up again. She couldn't see the lights of the harbor nor the shape of ships, but it didn't mean they weren't there. Visibility was poor, that was all. If she were to make this crossing, she needed a distraction. She sped up as much as she dared, and when she was within touching distance of Anna, she called out to her. "What were you doing with Tommy last night?" Anna turned and regarded her with narrow eyes. "We watched the Northern Lights," she said, her voice a thin whisper on the wind. "You might as well know, Paula. I'm going to have him for myself." What? Paula barked out a laugh at the absolute nerve of the woman, but Anna's expressions didn't change, and she wondered if she misheard her. Who would actually say that? She coughed, feeling it deep down in her chest, and lights flared in her head as the motion sent another wave of pain through her temples. "Excuse me," she said, and her voice sounded weak and pathetic. "I didn't hear you." Anna edged towards her until she was close enough to touch. Paula looked around, her mouth suddenly dry as she realized she couldn't see the shoreline any more than she could see evidence of the harbor. She swayed as the ice beneath her feet seemed to shift again, her arms automatically going out toward Anna for support. The other woman didn't move, and reluctantly she forced her hands down by her sides again. "You heard what I said, and I mean you'll have to go, of course." Anna's eyes glittered dangerously in the twilight. "There's no room for both of us. Run." The instructions were brutally clear in Paula's mind, but her feet refused to move. She looked down at them, then across the lake, desperately seeking dry land, but her sense of direction had deserted her. "You killed that man. Here she go. Don't be confronting this crazy woman." "You killed that man." She didn't know why she said the words. It was as if she couldn't hold them back, but for some reason she wanted Anna to know that she knew exactly what she'd done. "William? Yes, and people before him, and after him too." Paula was aware that her mouth was open, that her lips were flapping uselessly. Once again, she wondered if she had heard wrong. "Who?" she breathed. With a sudden motion that had her flinching, Anna whipped out her backpack and spun it around to clutch it in front of her. Pulling off a glove, she opened the zip and unended the bag. The contents toppled onto the ice. Paula flinched at the impact. When she was sure the ice wasn't going to crack, she let her gaze land on a small pile of items. She drew in a sharp breath at the sight of the wax jacket and lifted her eyes to meet Anna's. "You?" she said. It wasn't a question, but Anna nodded anyway. "I opened the gate and I saw it was unlatched the night before. I got the keys from Mark in case it had been locked. He was a crew member on the ship. Did you ever meet him?" Her eyes were far away, a smile in them that flickered for just a moment before fading. When she looked back at Paula, her gaze was blinking hard and dead. "That's his phone." With the tip of her boot, she nudged the mobile. It slid soundlessly along the ice before coming to rest against the jacket. "He won't be needing it anymore." The words, loaded with hidden meaning, were more terrible than if Anna had described what she'd done with him. Where is he? But even as the question left Paula's mouth, she realized she didn't want to know. Anna held out her arm in a sweeping gesture. He went in to see, she said matter-of-factly. Do you realize how easy it is to dismantle the railings of our balconies? I just rode him straight into the water. Paula felt her body begin to quake with shock as finally, belatedly, she realized that she was in mortal danger. The fuck? You mean you just now realizing it? This woman would kill her, had killed before. 2 people that she had mentioned in as many minutes. She would not be telling Paula all this if she was planning to let her walk away. Paula had known people like this existed, but never ever had she thought that in her adult life she would encounter such a barbaric evil herself. Run, she told herself again. And miraculously, this time her body responded. She spun around to face away from Anna, her feet wheeling comically on the ice, and skidded away, running in a crouch, one hand trailing on the ice to stop herself from falling. Between the snowflakes that had thickened into the snowstorm, she saw tracks in the ice. Half of her brain wondered what they were before realizing they were not tracks. Rather, they were cracks, spiderwebs of danger that even now were growing and multiplying. She changed directions. Flashes of Anna in her peripheral vision to the right, and put her head down and urged her body along, sending up silent prayers that the ice would hold, that she could get back to the shore. But what then? She chanced and looked over her shoulder. Anna was moving fast, gaining on her, gliding along, and the sight made Paula slow down as she observed the other woman properly. What could Anna do? Unless she had a gun concealed on her person or a knife or some other weapon, what harm could this tiny, emaciated child woman really do to her? She killed a man, a voice hissed in her ear. Exactly. The man in the newspaper had been old, slightly infirm, but the other one, Mark, what about him? Paula looked down at herself. She was bigger than Anna, but she wasn't a fighter. She had never had a physical altercation in her life. And then all her thoughts were shoved aside at the sight that suddenly appeared in front of her. Through the snow that was coming down like tiny blades, she saw a dark hole open up in the ice a few meters ahead. The shore. The gravel, the sand, the sludgy ice. She had made it back to land. She skidded to a stop just in time and screamed, the sound ringing out, bouncing off the rocks that surrounded the lake, flinging her cry back at her in an echo. It wasn't the shore at all. It was a hole, a great gaping breach in the ice. From here, she could see the size of it, the ice inches thick, and the jet black water inside. Her feet went out from under her and she landed painfully on her knees. Dead end, her brain was screaming. She scrabbled helplessly on the ice as she tried to stand. Some piece of knowledge imparted by Tommy came to her. Ice holes drilled by fishermen to enable them to continue their trade while the lake or river was frozen, too wide to jump but no time to go around it. She wasn't sure if she heard, felt, or sensed Anna's presence, but there she was, gliding up behind Paula, the ice hole not frightening her. No, for Anna, it was a perfect opportunity. Her hand shot out, fingers roughly grabbing Paula's neck as she brought up her leg and jammed her knee into her back. Then she pulled Paula's head back and kicked it with all her might. Paula's breath came out in a woof sound and a sign that seemed to draw every ounce of air from her lungs. There was no pain, not really, not yet, just a deep sense of shock, dark and desolate as the hole in front of her. The light, already fading from the day, dimmed rapidly, a vignette in her vision. She felt her head lolling and stupidly heavy, her chin nodding towards her chest. She slumped backwards into the arms of her persecutor. Anna worked quickly, down on her knees now, pushing the other woman across the ice. She had thought she was unconscious, but as they reached the lid of the hole, Paula's hand shot out to grip the edges of the ice. Her fingers fluttered 1 minute, still the next. Semi-conscious, Anna realized. She straddled Paula's back until she was kneeling on her shoulder blades, then raised her right leg again and this time stamped on Paula's hand. Paula shrieked, her fingers splayed wide as she let go of the ice. With one hand free, it was easy to tug the other one away. Then, in a single fluid motion, Anna leaped up and grabbed the back of Paula's coat, heaving her forward in the black water. She wheezed as she tried to get her breath back, knowing she only had a few seconds before Paula's body would rise to the surface again. The shock of the water had temporarily revived her, she saw, and she came up kicking and screaming, arms flailing. Anna angled herself into preparation as Paula's face rose, mouth open as she saw air. She landed a boot on the crown of her head. Before Paula could recover, Anna went down on her knees and grabbed her hair, pushing her head down, 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 until no part of her was visible above the ice-cold water. Then, with the last of her strength, she shoved her backwards. She stood up and shook her hands. Next time Paula came back up, she would hit the thin, thick ice above her. No air, no escape hole. She leaned over and put her hands on her knees, breathing hard. Her job was done. It was time to go back to the ship and to Tommy. Oh my, that's the end of chapter 23. So we found out it is Paula under the ice and Anna on top. But Paula, I don't know what is wrong with her. Why she don't have no sense of danger in her. Like, where is her? I can't get it right now. Like, why would you follow this crazy woman on some ice? Turn back and get lost. Forget that. But you chose to follow her on the ice, and then not only follow her, you freaking confronted her about the stuff that she did. What in the world? Because soon as I would have saw Anna, pew, I would have shut off and been gone. But here we are now, y'all. Now we know it is Paula under the water, at least for now. Because we don't know if Paula gonna find another hole to come up, and Anna had already turned around and gone back to try to get some land. And we don't know if Anna gonna find a hole and fall in that, if the ice gonna crack and she gonna fall too. So that's my hope. I'm hoping that Paula find another hole, climb out, and Anna, the ice gonna crack and she gonna fall under. But they both might die from hypothermia. I don't know, y'all. I'm gonna see y'all in the next chapter. Bye for now.